Welcome to this Supraliminal Games MTG Arena Pauper Primer for Ravnica Allegiance Edition. My name is Dan, and I have with me here Max.
Hi.
Say hello, Max. And we have joining us this time J-Rod.
Hello.
It's the first time with us on a primer. If you've seen our primers before, this is going to be a lot like them. If you've not seen our primers before, welcome. What we do here is we spend a bit of time talking about standard Pauper as it currently sits and as we see it, decks that we think we're going to see as we go forward, and what we think we can expect out of the metagame for the, 3 days that we have this format?
Yep.
So we're going to start off with everyone's favorite card for Pauper printed in Ravnica Allegiance, and the card that when it was spoiled, Max told me, well, they ruined Pauper.
Yeah.
Persistent Petitioners.
Yes. This card is very, very busted. It is a 1/3 for 2, and you can see it up on the screen. It is a human advisor that has one colorless tap. Target player puts the top card of the library into their graveyard. Then the more important line of tap 4 untapped advisors you control. Target player puts the top 12 cards of their library into their graveyard. And then even more important still, a deck can have any number of cards named Persistent Petitioners.
Yeah.
Yep, they broke Pauper for Arena.
So we talked about the Rat Colony deck since the very first Pauper Primer. And hopefully you listen to that. If not, feel free to check us on that, but I'm sure you're more interested in the current environment for Pauper. But
although Rats is still a thing.
It is, and people have been playing that deck in every iteration of Pauper. So the Petitioners are kind of the next version of that, and the reason I think, and I say that they broke Pauper when they printed this card, at least Arena Pauper, is because they're a 1/3. 3 is a toughness that there are no sweepers built into Pauper to deal with. One toughness, like the Rats have, okay, we have --, we have 1 damage to each, we have ways out of getting ratted out.
Absolutely.
The Persistent Petitioners are a whole different animal because there's no way to deal a mass 3 damage with commons. Not without multiple cards, anyway.
Yeah, there's not a single card that can take care of their cards.
Exactly. So it becomes a much, much, much bigger threat in the world of Arena Pauper than the rat colonies were, in my opinion. In fact, they even block a rat colony pretty well, so they're just kind of set up to do it all.
Yeah, it's gross how good they are, and much like when we first got Pauper on Arena, where Rat Colony was the level 0 deck, I think the new level 0 deck is 40 Persistent Petitioners and 20 Islands.
Yes, I think that's absolutely the place most people will start when they look at the Petitioners. You only need to spend wild cards enough to get you up to 4. Once you have them, you are good on Infinite. So I think 4 spending so few wild cards is really attractive. And I think that most people are going to use the Petitioners, end the land, and just let me try it and see. How do we make it better? Well, I think the answer there is the list I have down here. And I think, like we talked about way back in the Rat Colony days, you want to take advantage of those odd mana turns that you're going to have. Your turn 1, you can opt. Your turn 3, this deck has Dive Down and Spell Pierce to protect your petitioner that is out. And I think that that's a very strong consideration that you should make when you're looking at trying to play this deck, because watching your Petitioners die when you have an open mana sitting there is heartbreaking. So, yes, in my opinion, there's no reason not to play some mix of Dive Down and Spell Pierce. They're just very, very powerful. I think Dive Down's the best of the lot because it's unconditional protection for your Petitioner, and it also gives it a 3-butt so that it could come up and block if you really, really need it to and probably survive.
Yeah,
So, I agree.
It takes care of, if they have 3 rats, you can profitably block one of them.
Exactly.
Rather than just, chumping one to get rid of it.
Yep. And I think opt to help you sort out, get those lands out of the way a little later on feels great. I'd be happy to opt on turn 3 after I played a Petitioner. I think that's all pretty good. I don't think there's a reason. I look through all the 3s at common we have in blue, and I don't think any of them are strong enough to warrant being played in the deck. I think just more Petitioners is better, more consistency is better than trying to squeeze in, like, I had the card that bounces and draws a card if you have Addendum. And it's like, that's kind of good if you're, like, if they have some kind of threat you can't deal with, it buys you more turns. At the same time, it's like, do I care? I'm just trying to mill them out. And I don't think it's quite there in terms of taking up deck slots.
Right. And that's definitely a problem.
Right. And when you're examining a metagame, as Dan indicated, we think this is kind of going to be the deck to beat. So the next question probably is, how the heck do we beat this deck?
Yeah. So if this is level 0, right, this is the easiest thing to think of, the barrier that everyone has to get over, right? This is what every deck has to be at least prepared slightly to beat. And so what beats it? Well, being faster than it. If this can beat you with a good draw on turn 7 or 8, you need to be damn well sure you can beat it on turn 5 or 6.
Then that brings us to the next deck.
The next deck that Max has up for us is Boros enchantments, right, Max?
Yeah, I call it Pauper Boros pants.
Gotta put on them Boros pants.
Boros pants. It's like putting on fists as pants.
Fist pants.
Fist pants.
Fist of pants.
Get foot punched.
I think we call that kicking.
Is that the deal?
Nope. I've never heard
puncher
that before in my
is
life.
punches of the power of kicks.
The Boros are all punches.
They know nothing but punch.
So for this particular build, I have it very, very focused. You can see the curve is the word, the mana curve, on your screen there, and I'm going to scroll down because, the 2s just keep on going. But,
yeah, they do.
16 1-drops. Healer's Hawk, Rustwing Falcon, Fire Shrine Keeper, and Shock, all 4 ofs. 2 ofs are the 25 here, and that outnumbers the land by a decent clip. Is Concordia Pegasus, Silverbeak Griffin, Knight's Pledge, Frenzied Rage, Maniacal Rage, Swashbuckling, and a single Tillinali's Crown.
I love the crown.
So you're just trying to get something evasive down quickly, you're trying to make it big, and you're trying to smash them before they can mill you out. So we did a breakdown, and we double-checked our math before we jumped on, so we're not lying to you people. With a reasonable draw where the Petitioners hit their Petitioners every turn up until turn 6, I believe. As long as they're curving out reasonably with their Petitioners, they will have you beat on turn 7. So...
yeah, you get an untap on turn 7, but nothing else.
yes, so you have to be able to come back and beat them before that, and this deck is very well suited to do it. It can comfortably, with 4 spells cast, win on turn 5, as long as 2 of them are a +2/+2 enchantment minimally. So that's what you're looking to do, is to just put down an evasive threat and just beat them down. The worst card in the deck is Fire Shrine Keeper, but 1-drops are really important. We want something down on turn 1, and it has Menace, so we can throw something on it to start beating them down with and force them into weird double blocks where they lose a Petitioner. I think it's weaker than the blue 1-drops. But, and Dan and I discussed this before we jumped on, the blue enchantments are just pretty weak. And Jared pointed out the fact that they're also largely redundant because so many of our threats are already built in evasive in the blue-white color scheme.
And they already have flying.
You just need better pants. We needed better pants, is what we're trying to say.
You fast pants.
So we
the
wanted...
red pants are better than the blue pants.
The red pants, there are literally 12 copies of a creature gets +2, either +2 or +1. And... they're huge. Tillinali's Crown gives +3/+0 and trample. It's a lot of beating down very, very quickly. The reason I'm not running more crowns, and maybe I'm wrong about the number of crowns, but it lines up poorly with Healer's Hawk and Fire Shrine Keeper. It doesn't do a whole... it just kills them, because when it comes in, it deals 1 damage to the creature that it's enchanting. So keep that in mind. But everything else it hooks onto in a pretty friendly fashion. Everything else has a big enough butt to handle it. We only have 2 2-drop creatures. The Concordia Pegasus is a 1/3 flyer. It's pretty good. Could also be traded out for the 1/3 flying vampire if you have that in its stead. And the 2-drop Silverbeak Griffin I think is pretty good. You could also, if you really need to in a pinch and you don't have the Silverbeak Griffins, because you probably got 2 of them when you got the white deck that they give you, and if you don't want to burn 2 wild cards, I could see running 4 Pegasus, 2 of the vampire, and 2 of the Silverbeaks.
Yeah, it's still pretty reasonable.
Yeah, so you just want to be as absolutely fast as possible. So that's all this deck's trying to do. There's nothing more to it other than it's trying to deal damage very, very quick.
The efficient, quick damage.
Right, but it opens you up to potentially being really bad against decks that want to interact, because when you're putting something on a creature and they kill the creature, you lose 2 things for 1 removal spell. So giving the opponent built-in 2-for-1s is a little dangerous. So if the metagame shifts heavily to what we consider to be the way to beat this and the previous deck, I would recommend jumping ship on this particular Fist Pants deck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the next question, right? Well, I guess we're still on the what beats Petitioners, but
this next one also could potentially beat the Pants deck because it's mono red.
I don't know, because the thing about it is, if you put Pants on a Healer's Hawk, mono red can't count to 30.
It's true, but if I have Mountain Firebrand, you can't put Pants on your bird anymore.
True.
So it's the ways we have to deal with the mono red deck that I have. We have Firebrand. This is specifically to deal with the bird before they get to put it on. And again, if you're on the play, you have a pretty distinct advantage with the Pants deck. It requires Firebrand or Shock to deal with it immediately.
Yeah. Otherwise, they're just hoping.
Yeah. Otherwise, we have Skewer the Critics, things like that, and you can use, ways to deal with their creatures, even if they're a little bigger, with things like Skewer the Critics. For speed purposes, I have it down to 16 1-drops. Firebrand, Fire Shrine Keeper again, Lava Runner, and Shock. 2s are Trailblazer, 4 of, Viashino Pyromancer, 4 of, Run Amok, which gives +3/+3 and Trample until end of turn. And Sure Strike, which is a singleton that gives +3/+0 and First Strike. For 3-drops, I have 4 Boggart Brute, 4 Skewer the Critics, which I think a lot of people are going to lean towards because it's one of the big talked about cards for Standard right out of the gate, and also Modern, in Ravnica Allegiance, and 2 Direct Current, because if they're going to mill you with the Petitioners, at least you can get half a Direct Current at them if you draw a land.
I mean, the fact that you can get stuff out of the graveyard feels pretty good.
Yeah, got to get every part of the buffalo when you're playing against those Petitioners. This deck can pretty actively deal with the Pants deck. It's got interaction. It's got ways to deal with the creature once it has 1 enchantment on it. If they make it too big, you're just in big trouble. But you have a fair shot, I think. And I really leaned on in this build Menace creatures, because they just have to put 2 Petitioners in front and be willing to sacrifice minimally 1, if not the 2 if you have a trick. Mm-hmm. So It's focused on dealing damage quickly out of the gate with 1-drops and being really, really hard to block.
Yeah.
So that's the goal with the mono red deck.
It's mono red, right? This is the way mono red has been since the dawn of Magic, and it's not going to stop or change anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
So now that we've developed the level 0 deck and the level 1 deck, we can go into talking to the level 2 deck, which is what beats the Boros enchantments and red deck.
Yep. And I think the answer is still somewhere in the world of Control. If you watched the very previous Pauper Primer, the one for Guilds of Ravnica, you'll know that we were championing this deck, and it ended up being literally everywhere.
A lot of people also found that.
It's real good.
If it's nice to be right, and I don't know if we were entirely, if people saw what we were doing or were also seeing what other players were doing, but we're going to take credit for this because
100%.
We put out the primer and you all watched it, so thanks for watching it. We appreciate it. And I think there's some hotness here, but I think you have to shift around the way the cards work and make yourself a little more vulnerable to certain things to be able to also deal with the Petitioners deck. So for 1-drops, I have 4 Opt, 4 Divest, which is the tech against the Petitioners deck, because if we can start stripping them out of their hand and then hopefully be able to start countering them once they start putting them onto the board, we might be able to stop them from getting to that magic number. If we stop them from 4, we can beat them with this control deck. That's the trick. After Divest, I have 2 Syncopate because I want early counter magic, 2 Blink of an Eye, again in response to the 4th one coming down, we can blink a previously already played one and maybe even get a little bit of value there. Because again, just the trick against the Petitioners deck from a control standpoint is keep them off that critical number of 4. Mm-hmm. And then Essence Scatter is a 4 of, which I bumped up from last time. Going into the 3-drops, I have 2 Hired Blade, which replace Darkblade Agent because we're just not surveilling as much as we were. That's kind of where we're going to take a little bit of the potency out of the deck. There's no game 2 or 3 in this Pauper event. There's just game 1s. So we have to trade off a little bit of consistency for the ability to deal with a myriad of deck styles. And the Petitioners deck is just so bizarre in the way it's attacking us, and so unlike anything we've seen in Pauper previously, we have to be able to be flexible. And the stats on Hired Blade are just too good to ignore. It takes down a Petitioner without being taken back, unless it's a double block, in which case hopefully we can break it up with a little bit of removal. It's no different than last time is Whisper Agent. It's a Hired Blade with Surveil 1, and it's actually a little easier to cast because it's got 2 flex mana. So if we're stuck on all blue, we can cast it. Mephitic Vapors, there are 2. Vanquish the Weak, there are 3, because, again, that gets rid of the Petitioners. If you have the one that exiles, it's probably a little better. I just happen to have Vanquish the Weaks, and I didn't want to use my wild cards on the exile one, because as you can see, I have 1 wild card left from all the brewing I've been doing. And under that, I have 2 Notion Rain, which we need that for backup. And then we have the single tech of 1 Clear the Mind, which allows target player to shuffle their graveyard into their library and then draw a card.
Just in case.
If we're playing against not Petitioners, this card's butt salad, but there's only 1 of them. So we can hopefully not draw it or avoid it. If we're playing against Petitioners, we're hoping to see it and use it 1 to 2 times, which should be enough to close out the game.
I think it'd actually be pretty good in the Dimir. The Dimirer?
Yeah, there's no fetch lands or anything, so...
And there are times where you're going to be stuck.
Yeah, getting back 10 spells is fantastic.
I need a lot of things, because I'm just going to keep drawing lands. Not if you shuffle half the spells that you already played in.
Going into the 4s, Artful Takedown is the only 4. I considered... I forget the name of it now, but it's the 4-drop counter spell that lets you shuffle 4 cards back in.
Devious Cover-Up.
Devious Cover-Up. I don't think it's good enough to handle the Petitioners, because 4 cards, when they're milling 3 times that, just isn't that impressive to me. So I avoided that when it comes to 4-drops. On the 5, I got Salvager of Secrets, which is the way we're going to get back Clear the Mind if we need to. So we can use that plus Blink of an Eye to loop Salvagers if we really need to. I didn't put in the Recover tech because I think it's just a little too slow. But if you want to do that, or Soul Salvage to try to get into full Salvager loops, I can totally see where you're coming from. I just opted for the Hired Blades in that slot because I just think getting more aggro against the Petitioners deck is really important. But I can see maybe the long game still being viable if you can keep them comfortably off the 4 Petitioners. So that's something that needs to be tested, so make sure you keep that in mind. And finally, we rounded out with 2 Soul of the Rapids. It's just an excellent way to close out the game. We saw this everywhere last Pauper. It's the bomb, I guess, because it's literally the bomb of the deck. It's the biggest creature, it's flying, and most importantly, it's got hexproof. So their targeted removal cannot deal with it. So it's pretty darn good. We got a mix of pretty even land base, 23 land. I went down a land because I moved so many things onto the 1 and 2 drop. So I cut a ton of stuff out of my 4s, cut a couple cards off 3 and moved them down a little bit. So I figured dropping 1 land wouldn't kill me. And the games I was losing with the Dimir control deck were games where I was flooding early. So that was my biggest weakness.
I think that is a serviceable control deck. I think that in a meta defined by Petitioners, you have to beat the deck that beats it.
Right.
You have to beat the deck that beats the Petitioners. So here I think we have a strong contender for the deck that beats the Petitioners.
Yeah.
Though this does, of course, beg the question, if we've come up with this, are a lot of other people going to come up with the thought of, well, if all we got to do is beat the Petitioners and everybody's trying to beat the Petitioners, what if we just play the deck that beats that deck?
Right. So nobody's playing the level 0 deck.
Yeah, are people going to next level the level 0 deck? Well, folks, I can tell you, they're not going to next level the level 0 deck because, as Max and I can tell you, having been there last time, a lot of people played Rats.
Yeah, they've played Rats every single time Pauper's been around.
And you'll see Rat decks this time because people decided they like Rats more than Advisors.
100%.
Yeah, so the level 0 deck is still alive. The level 0 deck is going to be alive, and yeah, we're going to have the old level 0 deck still having it out. We're going to have Rats fighting against Advisors.
And that's actually going to be a good match, I think, because as soon as they get their second Rat, it's an even trade for their Advisor, and I think the Advisors are more important to their strategy than a single Rat to the Rat deck.
Agreed. They're trying to deal
you
20
can win
points.
a game with 3 Rats. You can't win a game with 3 Advisors.
Yeah, that's a great point. When you're talking about dealing 20 points of damage versus milling 60 cards, it becomes a lot. And you need a static 4 Advisors. You don't need a static number of Rats.
Yeah, you need 3 Rats to make them 4 power. You need 4 Petitioners to have them each mill 4 cards. the rat deck might be the one that can still be a problem, but the Petitioner deck, with the changes that Max has made, is going to be the way that it can take on the rat deck and still have a very good chance of just milling everyone out.
Yeah, being able to catch their soul salvages with Spell Pierce is a pretty big game, and being able to dive down their persistent Petitioners, is going to be a big game. So I think those spells have a lot of flexibility in all the matches, and the rat deck scares me enough that I kept Mephitic Vapors in the control deck.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's still going to be there, no doubt about it.
Yep, it's absolutely still a deck that we're going to have to face. Additionally, if you're out there and you're like, fuck all this talk about rats, all this talk about Petitioners and Boros and aggro this and aggro that, what if I just want to play my pet deck? Well, I managed to come up with a list of about 20 decks that are capable, and not the 4 decks we just talked about, of being played.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're good. I'm not saying they aren't good. I'm just saying they are. You could build a deck that didn't look like trash.
Yeah, these are archetypes that all either have good synergies together or just a raw power level that's high enough that they should be tested. And you should absolutely test. And if you're testing and winning with some build, let us know. Our favorite thing, and I'm not just saying this because it's interaction on YouTube.
Favorite things when people like, use the deck, won,
yeah,
or tried this new deck you guys didn't talk about, and I won.
Yeah, or, hey, you guys forgot about this. I'm totally smashing people's stupid faces with it, you idiots. I love that, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you let us know, like while we're like playing, like before we actually finish the event, everyone but Max can probably build the deck because Max is out of wildcards.
I mean, I have a good deal of comments, but yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna rip through the list. It's actually a little bit open. I'm gonna rip through the list really quickly. And Max and Jared, if you think I'm way off base with anything, just let me know. This is in the order it came to me while I was at work. Gruul aggro, red-black spectacle, blue-white flying men with pants, mono-green stompy, tokens, Grixis burn or Grixis spells, pirates, merfolks, dinos, vampires, life gain, death touch, a mono-blue control, which is kind of what we were talking about, mono-blue, mono-black, a Simic grow, like an evolve, not evolve, what's the new thing? Adapt. Temur grow, that's like an adapt and riot kind of, because those work together pretty well. Black green tempo, blue red wizards, blue red spells, Orzhov tempo, and just like afterlife tokens.
If you're against a deck that attacks you and you have some afterlife, you're in a really good spot.
The only deck I didn't hear, and probably because it's me and nobody is actually going to say it, I want to see the Goblin Gathering deck. I always want tribal to be a thing. And there's a rat and advisor deck, so why not goblins?
So yeah, let us know what you're playing. Let us know what you're winning with. Let us know if there's a sticking point or a card you can't figure out how to get around. Any interaction you can put right in the comments under this video.
Yeah, absolutely. And while you're there checking us out, we're at www.superliminalfilms.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram. We also make podcasts. We also do all kinds of stuff here on YouTube as well, not just Magic content. So really, we're pretty much everywhere. Whenever Pauper is live on Arena, we stream most, if not all, of the days of it over at twitch.tv/superliminalfilms. So go check us out there. Bye, everybody.